Hey, peace world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video. My name is Wood. Gonna jump into some bite down boxing talk. It's really thin out there for boxing right now. It's really thin out there for boxing right now. Looks like, let's start Wyatt's thing. So it looks like, it's an article on boxingscene.com, but it looks like there's not going to be any fights on ESPN for March. Very thin schedule, this month and February already, but in March, ESPN has elected not to do any boxing because of with the expectation that there's a whole lot of college basketball, conference championships, and getting into March Madness. So, that would be interesting if because I thought CBS usually did the Final Four. So, but anyway, that's what's on the schedule already. Is no fights on Showtime. ESPN in March. Very little, maybe 2 shows I think they said in April, and then 7 to 9 or something in May and June. So, along with that, Matchroom was shut down for January in the UK because of their ban, and they don't know what's going on with whether that'll ease up in the in February or not. But they did just come out. I heard Eddie Hearn on Sirius XM yesterday, and he said that the rematch between Povetkin and White would be March 6th. So that's pretty interesting to get that date out there. And then they're scheduled to release the rest of their UK schedule this Friday, 2 days from now. Is that the 15th? Yeah, the 15th. So they're doing what they're doing. The next thing is some interesting shakeup with the February, 13th? February 13th card that is planned for the return of Adrien Broner. His opponent has changed. He was fighting somebody named Pedro Campa, I believe was the cat's name. I never heard of him before. For super lightweight, 140 pounds. Campa supposedly has tested positive for COVID-19, I believe is the reason. I skimmed through all this stuff, so I'm not trying to say definitively that's what all this information on the fly when I'm on the move is correct. But I believe it's a positive COVID test has knocked him out, which is interesting. Get back up for just a second. With last week I saw where Kubrat Pulev's manager, he's been doing a lot of talking, came out and said that Kubrat was battling COVID situation or COVID related symptoms ahead of his fight with Anthony Joshua. And that's why his performance was kind of lackluster on fight night. And he's calling out Dillian White, and I'm just, man, please go away. Like, to think that he would have had COVID and that the fight with Anthony Joshua would have went on as scheduled is a joke. I'm just telling you that Adrien Broner's opponent has gone away because of COVID. Now the thing with that one, is it an easy way to get an opponent that's more eye-catching, and more, maybe they've seen some great signs out of and some great developments with Adrien Broner with his weight loss and work ethic, commitment and whatnot. He's down in Florida with Robert Easter Jr., Tank Davis. I know they're also in camp with Xander Zayas from over on Top Rank. Did they say, hey, we think we can do something better than Campa? Possibly. But along the way, for these other fights, we've heard of testing at certain periods. Even I've talked to a couple of fighters and had them on live streams and whatnot, you know, and there's some testing along the way before fight night that I don't know if I can really believe that Pulev had COVID-19 on the way to fighting Anthony Joshua. You know, he wasn't that important for them to take that type of risk. But anyway, but yeah, different opponent coming up for Adrien Broner. It'll be interesting to see who they get. You know, that Campa name really wasn't doing a whole lot for me personally. I understand that he's been out of the game since what, January or February or something of 2019, was it? So I get that. It was good news to see Robert Easter Jr. coming back on that card. He's been inactive since his last fight with Adrien Granados. And it's a lot of PBC guys, man, who we've been watching the last 2 or 3 years that it's been a little disappointing to not see some of those guys get some work. You know, Jared Hurd, Tony Harrison, you know, even Andy Ruiz has been out of the game, you know, for quite a bit of time. There's a couple other names that come to mind, but it's like, what are they waiting for with all of these guys? Or I don't know. You mess around nowadays and be out of, you know, out of sight, out of mind, you know. And guys need work. You know, what have some of these guys been doing? And then when you come back, you got to get this light touch in before you're really ready to get a, what the hell? Come on, man, it's way too early to be doing all of that. Then these guys come back from these extended breaks and then they got to fight some nobody. And I don't know, man, it's just interesting what the PBC has done, having spots on Showtime as well as Fox. And some of these guys haven't been put back to work. But Robert Easter Jr., his opponent hadn't been identified yet, but he tested positive for COVID, so they're shaking that up. Also on that card was a heavyweight fight between Otto Wallin and Dominic Breazeale. I think that's a pretty good heavyweight fight. Not an easy night for either one. I mean, depending on where you are with Otto Wallin, you know, he had the a good start against Tyson Fury and went the distance with him, but even though he had Fury in bad shape with that cut, you know, for the rest of the fight he couldn't capitalize on that. So, but I like Otto Wallin, good spirit. I've heard him do several interviews. He wants to fight good fighters and wants to do something big at heavyweight. So I like Otto Wallin. I just don't really know how much talent he has or how much noise he can make at the the heavyweights in the upper echelon of the division and whatnot. So that's cool. But getting on to what I wanted to talk about, really wasn't the biggest name in the world in boxing, and I know what gets people to click on stuff. You know, I know what the big headlines are, but I thought it was a very interesting fight that was announced maybe a week and a half ago. I believe I did an update on it with Gabriel Flores Jr., who was supposed to fight Andrew Cancio. I thought that jumped out to me because Cancio's coming over from Golden Boy, and you know, he's a two-time champion. One of the times might have been one of the secondary belts or whatever for the WBA, but you know, the guy got beat down by Rene Alvarado, which kind of led to him, you know, his stock kind of taking a drop before he came over to Top Rank. But a couple of injuries have kept him out of the ring during last year. And then to come back against Gabriel Flores Jr., that seemed like a very dangerous fight for, damn, it's a big animal in the middle of the street. Damn, it was like 50 pounds. But yeah, I still thought Cancio presented a pretty tough challenge for the kid. Because we still haven't seen Gabriel Flores really do anything. He's got one highlight knockout against a nobody, or a really lesser known opponent. But we're still just watching him kind of develop. And it just seemed a little premature to put him in with the guy against a guy like Cancio with his experience. And we've seen Cancio knock out Machado like 2 times, I believe. So, and we've seen Cancio get off the mat, get off the canvas, and finish fights. So, with Flores Jr. not really being a power puncher, they could get late in that fight. I'm imagining it'll be a 10-rounder, but he could have been round 7, round 8, round 9. He could have been a lot of problems for Gabriel Flores Jr. Well, that matchup took care of itself because Cancio was pulled out because of I think it's either a shoulder or a back injury. Again, you gotta wonder if somebody at Top Rank was looking at that and created this injury, because maybe that was a bit of a step up for Gabriel Flores, to be honest. Like I said, just so many unknowns that we haven't seen Flores do at this point in time, and I don't know. That just didn't seem all that wise for the kid. So anyway, the replacement has been, one potential replacement came up yesterday in another boxing scene article. I'm assuming that it was Jake Donovan that wrote the article. One, I'm a little shocked that the news that this story came out and the details came out with Albert Bell being offered this fight. Albert Bell is a super light, a super featherweight out of Toledo. He upset Andy Vincez last year, or 2019 probably, end of 2019 I want to say. And I don't think Flores could defeat Bell at this stage of his career. Bell might be like 27. I think Gabriel Flores might be 20. He might be 21. But with Bell beating Andy Vincez, who had a belt, some kind of secondary belt, some WBC, Continental Americas or something, or Diamond, I don't know. But to see Bell get that victory definitely established, Bell as a far more mature fighter, and I don't know, that wouldn't be a good matchup for Flores, in my opinion, either. And I see, we see some of these different fighters getting tested and being put out here in tough fights. So I'm gonna watch it, and I think it could be a good fight, but I don't know if Gabriel Flores Jr. has the entire skill set to defeat Albert Bell at this point. And Albert Bell has I think Bell might even be in the top 15 at this point in one or two of the sanctioning bodies. I'm guessing the WBC, since that's the title that Vincez has. So I think he's at least in the top 15 of the WBC. But he's long, taller than Flores, boxer. He did have some hand problems in his last fight, but he's a guy. Bell isn't losing many rounds at this level, at this stage. The types of opponents that he's facing right now, so he knows how to win rounds. Pretty good boxer. Probably has a height and reach advantage. The only thing I can see in favor of Gabriel Flores Jr. might be his work rate is a little different. He fights at a different pace than Bell. Bell is a little more conservative, and like I said, he's had hand problems before, so I don't think he really likes to bang a whole lot, and definitely not early. You know, he's kind of a calculated fighter, but I don't know. I wouldn't take Flores in that one at all. So, but like I said, it's just interesting that the story came out. There was some quotes in the article from Bell saying that he'd already signed the contract, and was pretty, you know, he wasn't optimistic that Team Flores would even take it. But, you know, he said they've been circling each other, or he's been aware that Flores, also trained by his father, that Flores has been inquiring about him to people that Bell knows. You know, and he's just like, you know, if you think you're ready for that, go ahead and take me as your opponent. Take me as the name. So I don't see that happening. It just really wouldn't make a lot of sense at this particular time, in my opinion. That's also the card that's the card that's planned for that's February 13th, I want to say, with the Breazeale and Oscar Valdez WBC super featherweight title fight, where Breazeale defending his title. That one's been a fight they've been trying to get together for a minute now, and postponed for different reasons and whatnot. So yeah, so that's just interesting, man. It was another kid, I thought it was another younger fighter who was out there that was matched tough recently, besides Ryan Garcia and Luke Campbell. I thought there was another fighter who had an interesting fight coming up, but this might be it, the one that I was thinking about. But I'm trying to think. So anyway, changes to the schedule, you know. Coronavirus, you know, is messing with these cards, and the fact that no fans are, you know, no update, you know, nothing kind of trending in the direction where, you know, state governments or whatever, or taking cues from the from the feds about when fans could come back to fights. So it's pretty difficult for boxing, for the promoters and whatnot, to jump right back in with continuing on what ended up being a pretty strong 2020, all things considered. But again, to go back to operating without fans again, you know, even some of the fights that we might consider mid-level, even holding those fights in strategic areas, you know, and for those fighters that do have solid regional fan bases or good fan bases in their home city, such as a Gabriel Flores, you know, it's a tough choice for some of these promoters to forego capitalizing on that draw to help out with putting some of these different fights on. But and even the damn, it was another fight. It was two fights that I was just looking at. They didn't even have the locations. Maybe the Joe Smith and Maxine Vlasov, I think was the cat's name. I don't think there's a location selected for that fight just yet. And there was at least one more, but even with the Broner card, you know, it's some they still haven't really settled on whether or not that would be at the Mohegan Sun in Uncasville, Connecticut, where the Showtime bubble has been. You know, they were still kind of leaving it out there or exploring different locations for that one, because they think, you know, there could be, you know, Broner is enough of a draw to get some kind of crowd in if that was allowed. So like I said, COVID is still just wreaking havoc on a sport that, you know, I don't want to say it's fragile, But it gets dicey when you got, you know, if guys are getting ready for camp, it's expensive to, you know, to get ready for a fight. And, you know, to just go out here making a bunch of announcements and, you know, there's the chance at any time of these fights falling apart because of a positive COVID test. So, that's that. It is interesting that once things do pick up on ESPN, once the schedule does pick back up, I wonder if it'll be any you know, cards twice a week like it was last year for that period of time. In what was that? After June, they did the Tuesday and Thursday night thing for a while. I wonder if they could return to some kind of format like that. But obviously, they have to watch and see what's going on with these vaccination rollouts and what progress is being made there and how that changes the guidelines for you know, crowds and gatherings and whatnot. So that's that. Look, I'm at the gig, so I'm gonna get on off of here. Like I said, I thought that was an interesting development in boxing. Again, I know Gabriel Flores Jr. isn't the most popular boxer in the world, but it just gives you an idea how fights come together with, like I said, with Bell already signing his side of the fight, and Team Flores can take a look at it and punt. You know, they probably had 2 or 3 names that they could go with, and you know, they'll make the determination of what's the right mix of risk and reward before they settle on who they fight. I just don't see them choosing Albert Bell for obvious reasons. And Bell is another guy, you know, with the upset of Vincennes, his profile was raised. And then he came back and fought De Garza, I think was the cat's name. And with him generating a little buzz, like, here's another guy at 130 pounds. What do you do with him? What kind of looks can he get? So anyway, bite down, boxing. Don't let them count you out. Let me go in here for this early half day, and I'll holler at you later. Peace.